Welcome back to Boilers and Beyond. I am your host, Jordan Jones. We're back here today after an extended break due to the cancellation of Purdue's matchup against Wisconsin last weekend, but back here today, and this weekend the 2-0 Boilermakers will return to action against a 3-0 and 23rd ranked Northwestern Wildcats team in a massive game that will play a huge role in the shaping of the Big Ten West Division. Here on the show today, I will preview it all for you, as well as give you a glimpse of what's to come across the Big Ten this weekend. It is worth noting, right before I came on the air today, it was announced that the kickoff for this game has been moved to 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. It was originally slated to be a 7:30 p.m. kickoff. However, the cancellation of the Ohio State-Maryland game has promoted the BTN to move this game to 5 o'clock and kind of meet halfway between those two scheduled kickoff times, both on BTN. So if you're looking for the game Saturday, 5 p.m. on the Big Ten Network. A week ago, getting into our preview here, last week, Northwestern took on Nebraska and won an ugly 21-13 matchup. Northwestern improved to 3-0. Again, a really ugly win. Nebraska did lead 13-7 at halftime. They got a touchdown late in the half on a 3-yard drive following a costly interception from Northwestern. But two Peyton Ramsey touchdown passes in the second half propelled the Wildcats to an 8-point lead, and some terrible clock management by Nebraska quarterback Luke McCaffrey cost the Huskers late, and Northwestern held on to improve to 3-0. And as we said, Purdue's game at Wisconsin was canceled. There were over 20 COVID cases within the Wisconsin football program. Athletic director Barry Alvarez made the decision to cancel the game. The game is declared a no contest. It will not be made up, and Purdue treated it like a bye week, really. And getting into our weekly report now, as you've probably noticed by now, Purdue is fairly quiet in their press conferences. We don't learn a whole lot, but Jeff Brohm was very disappointed to not get the game in against Wisconsin. Well, I really wanted his team to get back out on the field against a very good opponent in Wisconsin. Says the team is hungry to get back out on the field, however, and that is a good sign for Purdue as they get ready for a huge game. In terms of injury updates, we didn't learn a whole lot. We did find out that redshirt freshman offensive lineman Cam Craig will miss the remainder of the season. He has to have surgery after getting injured in the in the Iowa game, where he started at left guard. Spencer Holstedge filled in nicely for Craig in the Illinois matchup and will continue to start in that left guard spot. We did not receive much of a timetable on any other injured players. In that conversation is Rondale Moore, the all-everything junior receiver. Brohm did not mention him, and this has become a weekly occurrence now. We don't really know much about Moore's situation. If he doesn't play this week, I don't know when he will play. This is a big matchup. This is a big stage to be on. Purdue is coming off a bye week. It would make a lot of sense for Rondale Moore to make his season debut here. In regards to the rest of the injured players, however, though, Brohm said the team is hopeful to get everyone back as fast as they can. Something we've heard multiple times now. That's applicable to center Sam Garvin, defensive end George Karlaftis, running back King Doru, and receivers Malik Carr and Mershawn Rice. Just a lot of unclarity as we look at the injury situation for Purdue and who will be available on Saturday. We did find out the punting job is wide open between Brooks Cormier and Zach Collins. Brohm does anticipate seeing both punters in action on Saturday. He will ride with someone if they're hot, but he really wants Brooks Cormier to be more consistent. A couple of poor punts in the second half at Illinois really hurt Cormier and put Purdue's defense in a difficult spot. Wants to avoid that again if possible. Fifth-year senior receiver Jackson Anthrop had surgery in the offseason on his shoulder. Had that just as camp was getting going. He is back to practice. No contact at this point, wearing an orange jersey. Still recovering from that injury a little bit. Sounds like we're a ways away from seeing him still, but glad to see the fifth-year senior at least getting back out on the practice field with multiple games left in the season and, the potential of this season going a couple more months. Hopefully we see Anthrop back on the field. An interesting comment that at least I found interesting, Ahmad Anderson was described by Jeff Brom as better on the outside than in the slot. We've seen Anderson quite a bit in the slot this year, but it looks like at this point, Brom thinks that Anderson may be better outside. In regards to the slot position, he wants to get TJ Sheffield more involved there. The last time these two teams played, Purdue went to Northwestern in an ugly matchup where neither team had been playing very well going in. Purdue was victorious 24-22. It was the first career start for Aiden O'Connell. He is from the Chicago suburbs, so that game had special meaning for him. Big day for David Bell in that one. 14 receptions for 115 yards and a touchdown. Northwestern outgained Purdue by 90 yards. They ran for 5.6 yards a carry, finished with over 230 yards on the ground against a really weak Purdue rush defense from last year. J.D. Dellinger knocked in a game-winning field goal into the wind from 39 yards out. At the time, it kept Purdue's very slim bowl game hopes alive, which now we know did not end up happening. To get into Northwestern now a little bit, we'll start off at quarterback. It was the weakest area of Northwestern's offense in 2019, and I don't say that lightly. They really struggled with former Indiana Mr. Football Hunter Johnson, transferred in from Clemson and really just didn't work out. They went to another Indiana native in Aiden Smith from Fort Wayne. Didn't have much going on there either. The pass game really struggled. They added graduate transfer Peyton Ramsey from Indiana. That's a name Purdue fans should be familiar with. He threw for 345 yards and a touchdown in the 2018 Old Oaken Bucket game down in Bloomington. He also ran for a touchdown in that game, a Purdue victory, and he was spectacular in last year's rainy matchup in West Lafayette. 337 yards through the air, 3 touchdowns, ran for 42 yards and another 2 touchdowns. And you'll remember the Hoosiers won that one in double overtime, ending Purdue's season. This year, it's been a mixed bag of results for Ramsey. He was really solid versus Maryland, a big 43-3 win for the Wildcats. And then the following week, only threw 18 passes versus Iowa. And against Nebraska a week ago, he was okay, up and down day. Had 2 interceptions that really didn't help his case. He has run for at least 32 yards in every game, has ran for a touchdown this year. That dual threat aspect of Ramsey's game is something Purdue will need to watch out for. He's been strong in the short to intermediate passing game, but the deep ball is a different story. He hasn't really connected on many deep fly routes yet this year, but that's not Northwestern's game. This is a ball control offense that focuses on a lot of short passes to move the chains, keep the offense on the field, and that threat to scramble is something Purdue is really going to have to watch for. They didn't handle it great last week 2 weeks ago with Illinois' Coran Taylor. Purdue's linebackers have to be ready to close out. Derek Barnes is excellent at that, and I expect to see him closing out on Ramsey quite a bit. In the running game, Northwestern missed starting running back Isaiah Bowser last week with a pectoral injury. He's been very good through 2 games, 48 carries for 155 yards and a touchdown. He's the bell cow for this backfield when he's healthy. Don't really know if we're going to see him on Saturday or not. Last week, Drake Anderson filled in nicely for him. Ran the ball on the season. He's run the ball 35 times for 193 yards and 2 touchdowns. Had over 90 yards last week alone on 18 carries and found the end zone on a 41-yard run. Both Bowser and Anderson, they're solid backs. Purdue is going to have their hands full with them. You're going to see Ramsey involved in the run game quite a bit. And that's not all. We've seen Jesse Brown find the end zone twice on only 11 carries, and Evan Hull is averaging more than 5 yards a carry on very limited action, and he's found the end zone as well. Northwestern loves to run the ball. They average over 50 rushes per game on the year so far. They've utilized receivers Kyrick McGowan and Riley Lease quite a bit in motion from the wide receiver spots. It's pretty effective. I like this Northwestern rushing attack quite a bit. It is certainly a far different rushing attack from Purdue's. They use so many different guys in there. We've only seen one from Purdue so far this year, obviously. But Northwestern's going to get multiple guys in there to run the rock and put pressure on Purdue's front 7 to make the necessary stops. At receiver, there really isn't a true number 1 receiver on this roster, and it's more just highlights how differing styles Purdue and Northwestern run. There's no doubt that David Bell is Purdue's number 1. Ramoud Chakal Bowman is Northwestern's number 1 receiver, I guess. He leads the team with 14 targets on the year, 10 receptions for 109 yards. Also with 10 receptions is the aforementioned Kyrick McGowan, a guy I really like quite a bit. He's a speed demon on the inside, really has the potential to burn you. They use their tight end, John Rain, quite a bit, 9 grabs for 86 yards and a touchdown. Riley Lease was their leading receiver in 2019, 6 snags on the year for 53 yards and a touchdown. And Malik Washington has seen some action in the slot, only 5 targets on the year, but nonetheless, a guy who Fitzgerald may throw in there a few times to run some routes for them on Saturday. In terms of their running backs, Isaiah Bowser has been a little more active in the passing game than Drake Anderson. We'll see if this becomes more of an option for Northwestern this week. Iowa utilized it quite a bit with Tyler Goodson and utilized it effectively. We saw a big play coming from a Goodson reception in that game. So maybe Northwestern will look to do that a little bit, whether Bowser is able to go or not. Up front for Northwestern, this is a fascinating unit on the offensive line. The starting unit from the opener has combined to just miss 1 snap all season, something you just really don't see all that often. True freshman at left tackle has been fantastic on the year. You don't often see a true freshman starting up front in the Big Ten Conference. The other 4 starters are all returners, and again, that's a rarity. But that's been a good unit. Only missing 1 snap is just insane. Ramsey's taken 6 sacks on the year. They are rushing for almost 5 yards a carry as a team, and that really reflects the offensive line. They don't have big-time backs who are going to blow you away, but the 5 yards a carry speaks very well on the offensive line. They have 20 rushes of 10-plus yards as a team. Again, more big plays coming from that offensive line. It's a solid unit. Can Purdue's defensive line break through and get some pressure on Peyton Ramsey? They may not have George Karlaftis this week. It puts more pressure on Purdue to make some plays in the pass rushing game, because otherwise Ramsey will pick them apart the way he has the last 2 times he's faced them. On the other side of the ball, this is Northwestern's bread and butter, the defense. Only allowing 12 points a game so far. Very, very impressive. 0 second half points allowed all year. Nebraska came close a couple times last week, but in 3 games, no one has found any points in the second half against this Wildcat defense, and only 324 yards a game against them. This is a tough D to crack through on. They have been big play teams, too. They have had multiple interceptions in every game, forced 3 interceptions from Maryland's Taulia Tagovailoa and Iowa's Spencer Petras before forcing 2 from Nebraska's Adrian Martinez last week. They've only given up 3 touchdowns on the season. One of those was the 3-yard drive we had talked about earlier on the show today. So, this is a good D, and, up front, it's interesting because they've only forced 4 sacks in 3 games so far, and those aren't great numbers when you're looking at a really strong defense like this. They're going to roll out senior Ernest Brown and sophomore Adetomiwa Adebawore. I have no idea if I said that right, but those are their 2 defensive ends. 2 sacks on the year for Adebawore. He's a pretty solid player, is just a sophomore. And then on the other side, Ernest Brown, 7 tackles this year for him. He's been strong in the run game for Northwestern. Iku Leota will see a lot of snaps off the edge as well. He's been very effective so far this year. He has forced 7 quarterback hurries, has hit the quarterbacks 4 times, and, that's impressive stuff for a third-string edge rusher. Inside, seniors Jake Saunders and Joe Spivak will be the starting defensive tackles in the 4-3 front. Saunders is very effective as a pass rusher. He fills the running lanes well as well. And Spivak's numbers don't say as much, but, that's not the most important thing. Purdue has a lot of youth on the interior of their offensive line, with redshirt freshman Spencer Holstead at left guard and true freshman Gus Hardwick at center. It's going to be very important for Purdue to be able to open up some of those lanes for Horvath to run up the middle, because that's going to be the way Purdue moves the ball on the ground against this defense. I don't think they're going to do well trying to bounce it outside with Horvath. The linebackers of this team, and this is where Northwestern is always at their strongest under a former fantastic linebacker himself, Pat Fitzgerald. They're led by seniors Patty Fisher and Blake Gallagher. Patty Fisher is a 2-time All-Big Ten selection. He is second on the team right now with 28 tackles on the year. He's an excellent run stopper, very, very strong in that area, coming down to plug the holes that opposing offensive lines make. Not as strong in coverage, though. And the same goes for Blake Gallagher, the team leader with 29 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss. He has forced an interception and broken up a pair of passes. Gallagher's been targeted quite a bit in the passing game, but, he's gotten quite a bit better there. His numbers against him are pretty solid on the year, and Purdue will look, to get these linebackers for Northwestern in one-on-one situations with their fast receivers. The linebacking core is rounded out by another senior in Chris Bergen, their third leading tackler on the team, with 27 tackles. A couple of those have been for loss. He also has an interception and has broken up 3 passes on the year. This is a fantastic linebacking core. They're not going to come off the field much, if at all. And, Purdue's really going to have to get a good push up front to run the ball, because if they get a hole open, one of these 3 is going to be flying down to plug the gap. At defensive back, this is where, the majority of the focus should go because of how much Purdue throws the ball. They're going to go with 2 juniors at corner, Greg Newsom and Cam Ruiz. Newsom missed the first 2 games of the year, but he was very strong against Nebraska last week, recorded 5 tackles, broke up 3 passes. And on the opposite side of the field, Ruiz has started all 3 games, 12 tackles, did get a sack on a nice corner blitz, but he hasn't made a ton of big plays in coverage. You think if he is going to be matched up with Milton Wright, that Purdue is going to try to get some one-on-one situations there. And then at safety, you have senior J.R. Pace and redshirt freshman Brandon Joseph. Pace has been really good for Northwestern so far. 13 tackles, has picked off a pass, Got into the QB a little bit, but even better has been Brandon Joseph. Freshman getting out there for the first time, really. Already has 3 interceptions on the year. He picked off a pair of passes against Iowa before making a acrobatic interception in the end zone last week up above a 6'8" Husker receiver. He's 4th on the team with 17 tackles, and I have a feeling we're going to see Joseph shadow David Bell quite a bit with his big playability. O'Connell's going to need to be careful when throwing it deep and make sure he knows where Brandon Joseph is at all times. We'll see redshirt freshman Rod Hurd on the field quite a bit to play the nickelback. He started at corner when Greg Newsome was out. He's a really good third option. 9 tackles on the year, a pass breakup. Good stuff from Rod Hurd so far. And then we will see safety A.J. Hampton come in the game a little bit, and even he has an interception on the year. This unit has made a ton of plays. O'Connell took care of the ball really well against Illinois. He's going to have to do it again today against this strong defensive backfield, especially those safeties who are eager to make big plays. At special teams, we had a rough week for Purdue last week, as we all saw, but on the flip side, Northwestern has experienced senior Charlie Kubander at kicker. He's 3 for 4 on the year. His only miss was a very wind-induced 42-yarder last week against Nebraska. His longest make is 43, perfect on PATs. He does handle kickoff duties as well. 6 of his 15 kickoffs have gone for touchbacks. At punter, Northwestern has Derek Adams, who has been excellent for the Cats so far. 42 yards a punt, a long of 58, and the impressive stat is that 7 of his 14 punts have been downed inside the 20, and only 1 of his 14 has gone for a touchback. That's some pretty good precision there. Purdue is going to need to match the punting game better this week than they did against Illinois. The speed demon, Kyrick McGowan, will return kickoffs for Northwestern. Look, they haven't had to return many kicks this year. They don't give up points. But he does have 2 returns on the year. One of those went for 36 yards last weekend. Dellinger hasn't had as much success getting touchbacks this year as he did in 2019. We'll see what happens here. Purdue's kick coverage has been very good this year. We've seen some young guys, Kieran Douglas, Sanusi Kane. They've made some big plays for Purdue on kick coverage this year, and we would love to see that again this week. At punt returner, we have seen Kyrick McGowan and Riley Lease share their punt return duties. Each has a 30-plus yard return. Lease is averaging a little bit better at 15 yards a return, while McGowan is at 9 yards per return. This is a more experienced and more proven special teams unit for Northwestern than what Purdue offers. Purdue can't allow big plays here or make costly mistakes the way they did against Illinois. Did the bye week help? That's what this is ultimately going to come down to for Purdue, and if they can keep this special teams matchup a draw in this game. The keys to the matchup on Saturday. Number 1 for Purdue, they have to cut down on penalties. 11 penalties for 103 yards against Illinois. Some really bad ones in there. Alfred Armour roughing the punter, multiple pass interference calls, an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Look, Pat Fitzgerald's teams thrive off of this. You cannot give them extra yards. Purdue will have to cut down on the penalties if they want to have a chance to win on Saturday. The offense has to stick with the running game. Last year against Northwestern, Purdue threw 51 passes and only ran the ball 21 times. And of those 21 runs, only 16 were designed running back carries. Brian Brom kept giving Horvath the ball versus Iowa, and we saw that pay off in the fourth quarter when Horvath really started to do well against a tired Iowa defense, even though the first half was mostly a struggle for the Purdue running game. You may have to utilize wide receivers in the running game this weekend. If Rondale Moore plays, I expect to see him in the run game, but Ahmad Anderson and TJ Sheffield both also could get involved here. And, can King Doru play this week? He's been out for the year thus far, but we expect to see him at some point. Clearly, DeJohn Hewitt isn't ready to get carries. He's been seeing the field some in special teams, but if he was ready to get carries, I think we'd have seen him touch the ball a little bit more, as he's recorded 0 carries on the year. And I do assume we will not see true freshman running back Tyreek Murphy for a while. You'll remember he was cited for possession of marijuana early in the morning before the Iowa game. And finally, Purdue has to take care of the football. They threw 2 interceptions against Iowa. They had 2 fumbles against Illinois. Can Purdue get that number down to 0 or 1 this week? That will be crucial. Northwestern, as I said, have intercepted 8 passes this year. That is a boatload. They have only recovered 1 fumble, but they forced 3. The 2 O'Connell interceptions against Iowa, Horvath's goal line fumble against Illinois, those were 3 costly turnovers for Purdue. Unfortunately, it didn't come back to cost them the game, but you cannot afford to have multiple turnovers against a really disciplined and rock-solid Northwestern team. It's time for me to make a prediction, and I don't feel great about this one, but, when was the last time there was a game of this magnitude in Ross-Ade? That was a question I got earlier this week, and it got me thinking. 2017 Indiana, where Purdue was looking to go to a bowl game in an improbable season. 2012 versus Michigan, when Purdue was 3-1, entering Big Ten play. Maybe even 2007, that Ohio State matchup when Purdue was 5-0 under the lights on ABC, and that was also the last year Purdue beat Northwestern in Ross-Ade. This is a huge game. The winner is in the driver's seat of the Big Ten West. The Wildcat offense has not been great over the last 2 weeks. This is going to come down, though, to how well Purdue can move the ball on a stout Northwestern defense. We saw the betting line open with Purdue favored by 2. It has shifted all the way to Northwestern now being 3-point favorites. Purdue's had 2 weeks to prepare and get ready. Northwestern has played back-to-back really close, down-to-the-wire games. I am going to go with Purdue 28, Northwestern 27. Aiden O'Connell is going to do it again. He's going to win the game late for Purdue. We're going to have a big day from Milton Wright, and I think the offensive line holds their own against a very good Wildcat defense. As I said, I'm not all that confident either way in this one, but I think Purdue's going to sneak out a close one. Elsewhere in the Big Ten, Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern on FS1, Iowa heads to Minnesota, each team coming off their first win of the season after Iowa blew out Michigan State and Minnesota dominated Illinois. Iowa's dealt with so much adversity. 4 more players have left the program in the last 2 weeks. Amir Smith-Marset is still suspended after getting charged with an OWI after their loss to Northwestern. But Iowa looked great versus Michigan State, 49-7 win there. And on the flip side, running back Muhammad Ibrahim has really emerged for Minnesota, almost averaging 200 yards a game, and he has ran for 10 touchdowns already this year. Crazy numbers there. They have star receiver Rashad Bateman getting over 100 yards a game as well. Iowa's 3.5-point favorites here. That should be a good game Friday night on FS1. That's the end of the good games for the most part, as Illinois goes to Rutgers at noon on BTN Saturday. Not a good football game. Illinois is still depleted from COVID. They got smoked by Minnesota last week, and there was a situation in that game where Illinois had to punt on 4th and goal from the 48-yard line. What's Lovie Smith's job security looking like at this point? That's the real question around Illinois. On the flip side, Rutgers is improved under Greg Schiano, but the offense still isn't all that good. Noah Vedral has proven very little. Rutgers is 6.5-point favorites. This is the first time the Scarlet Knights have been favored in a Big Ten game since 2014. Yikes. Also at noon, Penn State heads to Nebraska on FS1 in a battle of winless teams and unhappy fan bases. Penn State just got manhandled by Maryland last week. They're 0-3 for the first time in nearly 20 years. Quarterback Sean Clifford has been really disappointing in his second year as a starter, and the calls for a new coach are starting to get louder in the not-so-happy Valley right now. Meanwhile, Nebraska's 0-2, and outside of the Husker fan base, no one is all that surprised. They would be 0-3 if Wisconsin didn't get COVID. They don't throw the ball well at all. There's QB controversy now between Adrian Martinez and Luke McCaffrey after last week. Nebraska fans really aren't happy. Maybe they still want to leave the conference now that the season's not going well. I don't know, but Penn State's 3-point favorites, and this is a game I just really have no interest in watching. Finally, rounding out the noon slate, Indiana looks to stay hot as they head to East Lansing to take on the Spartans on ABC. Man, the Hoosiers just keep on winning. They easily handled Michigan last week in a 17-point win. They're a top 10 team for the first time in half a century. And this may be the first time I can remember that it's November and no one in the Hoosier fan base is ready for basketball season yet. They are doing great things. Quarterback Michael Penix is the real deal. Meanwhile, Michigan State came back to earth with a 49-7 loss at Iowa. Rocky Lombardi tossed 3 picks. They can't run the ball. The defense couldn't stop anything against Iowa. The Hoosiers are only 7.5-point favorites here. It kind of seems low to me, but we'll see how it goes up in East Lansing. Ohio State at Maryland, as I reported at the start, is canceled. That was set to be a 3:30 kick on BTN, but there are COVID problems in College Park, and that game will be canceled, declared a no contest, and will not be made up. Rounding out the Big Ten slate on ABC, Wisconsin returns to action as they head to the Big House to take on the Michigan Wolverines on ABC. Welcome back, Badgers. The last 2 games obviously have been canceled due to the COVID outbreak in the team. Their only performance was their 45-7 win over what we know now to be an awful Illinois team. Quarterback Graham Mertz will still miss this game. They will turn to Danny Vandenboom to be the starting quarterback, it seems. On the flip side, Michigan is in bad shape. 38-21 loss to IU last week. The heat is really turning up on head coach Jim Harbaugh and defensive coordinator Don Brown. Are they going to be able to somewhat salvage this season? That's the real question in Ann Arbor right now. I don't know the answer to that, but they are 1.5 underdogs this weekend. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for joining me here as we previewed the Northwestern matchup. As always, make sure to follow the show on Twitter at Boilers Beyond. We will be live tweeting the game there, so be sure to follow along and check in with us. Let us know how you're watching the game this weekend. We'll be back on Sunday night with a recap of the Purdue Northwestern game. Until then, please enjoy the game, and we'll see if Purdue can get a huge win in the Big Ten West race. Thank you, and have a good day.